Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Novelists Unwind. We're so glad that you're joining us. I'm Johnnie Alexander, and I'm here today with Lynn Blackburn. Lynn is the author of both love-inspired suspense novels and a new series with Ravel. So we're going to be talking about both of those. But before we do, Lynn, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into writing.
Sure. Well, yeah, my name's Lynn, and I live in South Carolina. And I have had stories in my head since I was a little kid. And somehow I was an avid reader, but it really just never occurred to me that if you wrote the stories in your head, that was called writing. I don't know how I thought writers came up with their story. I don't know what happened there, but I didn't make that connection until I was in my 30s. And one day I was like, wait a minute, this extremely detailed story in my head that I thought something was wrong with me. Like, what is the matter with me? And then I thought, oh, I could write that down. And of course, then I thought, how hard could it be? Because, I've been reading since I was 5. This should be a piece of cake. And I think I got a half a page into my story and realized that I did not have a clue even how to format the dialogue. You read it and you think you know what it's like, and then when you start to write it, you realize, wait, where does the comma go in the quote? So I wrote a book. I wrote the whole thing, and I, of course, thought it was fabulous. It's never been published, but my family loved it. But
Of course you did.
of course, but it did give me enough confidence. And my husband, bless him, I mean, we had no extra cash at all, and as God would ordain it, I went to the library to look for books on writing after I'd already written the whole thing.
Mhm.
And one of the books in our library was Writing for the Soul by Jerry Jenkins.
Wow, yeah, I've read that.
Yeah, and at the time, oh goodness, this was in 2009. Yeah, this would have been late 2009. He had the Christian Writers Guild, and he had the
Mhm.
courses that you could do. And I couldn't swing the longer courses, but he had a Fiction That Sells course. It was 4 or 5 months maybe, and you had a mentor, and you send stuff back and forth. And so that's how I started. And as she ripped my stuff, Lisa Halls Johnson was
Oh,
my mentor, and she wrote, I have never forgotten, there was one note, she's like, I've been hard on you, but I think it's because you could do this, and I want to see you succeed.
wow.
And when I finished the class, I said, well, what do I do now? And she said, you go to a writing conference. And I was
Good
like,
advice. Yeah.
where? There's a lot of them. But the Blue Ridge Mountains Christian Writers Conference is just a 2-hour drive from me, and it's fabulous. And that year, actually, Jerry Jenkins was the keynote that
Wow.
and
Wow.
so I went to that, and that's where that ball started rolling. And then immediately got pregnant with our third child, so the ball slowed down. That was a little bit of a slow there, but I kept at it and kept after it. And then I'm going to get the date, 2014, Love Inspired Suspense held a contest, and it started with a first page, and then I think it went first page, synopsis, first 3 chapters, full manuscript. I think that was the progression. And you send in your first page, and if you made it past the first page stage, then they would ask for the synopsis, and it kept going. And I sent the full manuscript to the editor on the night before my 40th birthday, and it
Wow.
sold about 6 weeks later. They bought it, and so that was Covert Justice. That was my first published book with Love Inspired Suspense.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so that was great. And then a couple years later, I pitched a series to Ravel, the Dive Team Investigation series. So I have 2 books with Love Inspired Suspense, and I still want to write a third. I have a third that is in my head. I've even got maybe close to almost half of it written, and it's just a time issue.
Yeah.
But I really want to write that third one for Love Inspired Suspense. And then I've actually just turned in the third book this summer for the Dive Team Investigation series. So I'm working on a proposal for a new series with Ravel. So yeah, it's been
Hey.
quite a ride, quite a ride.
It is, and I know it probably seemed like a long time to you, but I will say, actually, in like with the authors I've interviewed, it wasn't. It's 5 or 6 years, and only your second book really is the one that sold. So
Yeah, it is
yeah,
not that is fairly quick
quick.
overall. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of writers who say they have, three. I think I read somewhere the average is 5 or
yeah,
maybe
5 or 6.
8
I've heard
books
that too. Yeah.
written before they sell. So I'm very blessed. Very blessed.
That well, yeah, but I will tell you, so when this airs, your book will be out, the
Good.
second in the Dive Team series, but it's not right this minute. So I wasn't able to read it, but I read your Love Inspired book, we'll show this, Hidden Legacy. And it's actually the second. So I'm reading and I'm thinking, I think the book before this, probably I should have read it first. So I got it. It's on my Kindle. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah, I started it last night. So you might want to read Covert Justice first, and then Hidden Legacy. But I will tell you, I was very impressed. You just get in there, and from the first page, it is like, wow, the action begins, and you are off on this wild ride with these characters, and very well. I mean, just
Oh, thank you.
very well written. I just loved it. Loved it.
Thank you. Well, it's great. I tell people who want to write, whether they want to write romance or suspense, Love Inspired is a fabulous place to start. The books are shorter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those books are around 57,000 words, and Into Deep, the one that releases in November, is a little over 91,000 words.
Wow.
So they're significantly shorter, but it forces you on the one hand, there's just not room for a lot of subplot, and there's not a lot of room to really dig into the other characters.
Mm-hmm.
But it forces all those things about backstory and all that stuff. You don't have time.
No.
Jump in, and it's a good training ground for writing longer books because it really helps you write tight and get a lot of story in. Even in a longer word count, you can have a more complex story, but it's still. I hope it's still packed. That's
Right.
Anyway.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, yeah. And it's such an interesting overall topic I think you're doing with these dive teams. So show us both the books and tell us a little bit about, how you got the idea of a dive team investigation, because that's very different. I don't know of anyone else in at least our CBA world that's doing that kind of thing.
So this is Beneath the Surface. It released in March, and it's the first book in the series. Into Deep, I got author copies this week.
Yay! That's always fun, isn't
Into
it?
Deep, yeah, I'm so excited. It's always like, so Into Deep releases November 6th. So I think that by the time this airs, it will be available.
Yeah.
And they're available in all the formats, paperback. I actually have, they're doing an audiobook of Into Deep. I don't think it's done.
Oh,
but
nice.
There's an audiobook for Beneath the Surface. And then Kindle, Nook, all the digital formats too. And I was right after I sold Covert Justice. So the summer I sold Covert Justice to Love Inspired Suspense. There's a Writers Police Academy. Have you heard of this?
I have, yes, yeah.
It's fabulous. It is a police academy for writers, and the intent is to have writers come in and learn from law enforcement professionals so that they write those scenes and those characters more accurately. But at the time, it was in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is just a 3-hour drive for me. And it was full. It filled up. The space was a little bit smaller there, and they would fill within a couple days of opening registration.
Wow.
And so it was on my radar, something I wanted to do, possibly the next year. And I was sitting working on something, and it came up on Facebook that they had some cancellations, and I think they had 7 spots or something small. And I called my husband and was like, I can get in. Maybe I could possibly get in. He's like, go for it, do it. And sure enough, I was able to get a space and was able to go. And there's more classes than you can possibly take. It's like going to any writing conference. You have to choose. But one of the options was to go watch a demonstration from the local law enforcement dive team. And I was intrigued. I didn't even know that was a thing. So we hop on buses and we go to the local Y. I still have this memory of the the indoor pool with the chlorine, because it was August, so it's blazing hot outside, and then inside it's the humidity from that indoor pool and the chlorine. And they showed us how they would do a search pattern, because you could see it. It was nice. It's with a pool right there, so you could actually see what they're doing. And they showed us how they would do a search pattern. They had the body bag, how they would bring a body up, and they talked about that particular dive team is actually made up of both sworn and non-sworn law enforcement officers. So if they're scuba certified, then they can do training. They do extra work on the weekend. And it was a mixture of other officers. So there were detectives, there were people in the Uniform Patrol Division. I think there was someone from the lab, and they had a whole bunch of different people in this on this dive team. And I thought, wow, I could do something with that. I could make that work. It would be great for a series where that's the thing that ties them all together. And I went back to the hotel, and Lynn H is my mentor and my friend. And I told her about it. And she was like, yes, you have to do that. You absolutely have to do that. But then it marinated for a couple of years. It sometimes even really the ideas that we love, the opportunity's not there right away. But I think God's timing is perfect, and I was super excited. It was funny. I've had a couple of romantic suspense writers in the CVA who've said, "You beat me to it," with a lot of love and laughter. No drama. I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm sure God's timing is exactly what it should be. But yeah, it's and we have where I live, it's, unless you live maybe on the coast, or possibly where, I don't know, maybe some of the Great Lakes, I'm really not sure, but most of the law enforcement dive teams that's not exclusively what they do. It's a side thing that they do. They have another full-time job, and then they get called out for either, for recovery or evidence searches and things like that. So it's, I was very blessed to have a homicide investigator here in our community who had been on the dive team, I was able to interview him, and he answered so many questions and was just fabulous about it. So I was very blessed to have that available to me. He was great, to try to make it as accurate as possible.
Of course.
So.
That's so intriguing. And I saw on your website, you have some kind of a question and answer kind of thing about the stories, and you talk about their visibility just being like zilch, and they're just going like using their hands. I thought, wow, how hard?
Yeah, I didn't. There's a gentleman named Michael Berry. He is an underwater criminal investigator, and he has a website. And while I was, Googling and researching, I came across him, and so I sent him an email. And he was great. He also answered tons of questions about search patterns and things like that. And he told me, he said, people talk about going down to look, and you're not looking, you're feeling. Wow. And I actually got scuba certified this year.
Did you?
And I can tell you, not being able to see, I don't think I could do that. I live in the upstate of South Carolina, so when we get certified here, we learn in a lake. And we do have a lake with decent visibility, but it's still a lake. I mean, you can only see so far. And I didn't appreciate how different that was until the summer when I was able to dive in the Keys. And in that water, you can see for 30, 40 feet, and it's so clear, and you can look up and you can see the bottom of the boat and all of that kind of good stuff. But in a lake, you've got kind of a limit to your visibility. But they are sometimes diving in much deeper water. Sometimes it's running water. Sometimes it's more of a river as opposed to a lake. It can even be, which this part just really grosses me out, to be honest, but farm ponds, because people will throw evidence, like they'll throw a gun or a body into a farm pond, which farm ponds are disgusting.
Oh, yeah, I grew up on a farm. I know about farm.
So much and zero visibility, and they have to wear all kinds of protective gear to protect them from what might be in the water, and then they have to just go by feel, and I cannot imagine it. I truly can't. So I have the utmost respect for what they do and how they do it, and it's not, I couldn't do it, but I'm thrilled that they do. It's a wonderful thing. We actually had a situation this summer in a nearby lake where a gentleman drowned in the lake, in a pretty deep part of the lake.
Wow.
And they had a pretty good idea of where he was. And our law enforcement dive team went to that lake because they had the equipment to be able to go that deep to recover the body. And the family was just so overwhelmingly appreciative of the fact that they were able to do that. And so sometimes it's not even evidence. It's just giving people closure for things and recovering a body. I mean, it's a blessing to the community for those people to be willing to do that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Would you have gotten scuba certified if you had not gone this direction with your novels? Was that something you always sort of wanted to do?
Well, my husband is scuba certified, and I thought it was a cool idea, but I am generally in my real life very risk averse.
I saw that on your website too. That was cute.
It's not really my thing. And I will tell you that I was horrible at it. The first day, you go to class for the morning, and then you go out to the pool, indoor pool at the local Y. And you start out in 5 feet. I'm 5'4". I mean, we started out in water that was only up to my shoulders. And you're supposed to go down to your knees. So, I mean, all you have to do is stand up. Like, you're not going to drown here. All you have to do is stand up. The very first time we started to go under, I completely panicked. My mask filled with water. I stood right back up because I was like, I can't. I mean, you've got air, but still. And my sister and my brother-in-law were doing it with me. And she's thinking, she knew something was wrong. She could see it on my face. It took me forever just to be able to get on my knees in 5 feet of water. Yeah. And then the next day we were down in the 10 feet of water. And you have to take all the gear off and put it all back on underwater.
Wow.
And it was not a good day. It was awful. And I really struggled with getting my mask to clear. And people like, everybody does, you'll figure it out. And I was like, I'm going to be the exception to that rule. I am never going to figure it out. And then you, after that, you go back and you go to the lake and you actually do open water diving. And it was, I mean, I got better, but still utterly terrified to the point, my instructor, the dive master at the scuba shop here is a phenomenal guy and kind of reminds me of Santa Claus. And he was like, I just want to hug you because you are so stressed out. I was like, you can hug me. Okay.
Please do.
Please. But, God shows us things in so many ways, but it gave me such a new appreciation, even for just dealing with anyone who's a beginner, because I was a complete wreck. I was sure I was never, I called my husband the first day on the way home and said, we have just wasted all this money. I am never going to be able to do this. I'm going to have to tell people that I wrote a book about it and I can't do it. This is a disaster. And they were so calm, and there was never any frustration. Like, there was never any of that. Look, how long is it going to take you to get this?
Yeah.
They were just like, you know what? You're new at this, and you'll get it. And they just kept saying, you'll get it. You'll be fine. And we did another dive this summer, just kind of after I was already certified, just for practice. I still have to talk myself into jumping off the boat every time. But then a few weeks later, we were able to go to the Keys, and I'm telling you that saltwater diving in clear water
made all the difference.
Can't wait to do it again. It was amazing.
That's cool.
Absolutely amazing. And I can clear my mask with no problem now.
Good.
It was just such a nightmare at first, but it even with writers or with your kids. We get comfortable with things that are just second nature to us now. And we forget how awkward and awful it is to not know how to do things, and how embarrassing it is to make mistakes. And they were wonderful. And I hope I take that with me even further, just with dealing with people, because if they had given me a hard time that first day, I never would have been able to go back. And they were gracious, and it made a huge difference. So I'm thrilled that I've done it now, but I don't know if I ever would have gotten the nerve if I hadn't had a little bit more motivation.
That is really cool. I've been snorkeling, not scuba diving. It was the same thing. At first, I was like, oh, I can't, because I'm not a good swimmer or really at all. So, but it was once I got into it, I didn't want to leave. I mean, it was just so cool to be. And it's like, and that thing of like, I'm actually doing this. You know,
Yes.
I'm not a water bug, and I'm actually out here just making my way around, and doing the mask thing, and yeah,
Yes.
it
is. Well, Susie May Warren is a big diver.
Oh, is she?
And yes, and they've gone diving all over the place. And I said something to her about clearing the mask. I was like, it's awful. Never gonna get it. She's like, you will get it. You really will, and it will be easy for you one day. And I was just like, I can't picture it. And then sure enough, while we were in the Keys, I kind of bumped my mask and it flooded all the way up. And I had one of those moments, like you just said, like, it was like, oh, I did it. Like, I did it. And I didn't panic, and it's okay. And I'm not drowning. So yeah, it's good. But cool. Writers feel it's fun for writing. I feel that way sometimes with writing too. I can remember someone asked me to look at something one time. I was like, I don't think you want me to look at it. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't help you with it. And then I sat there and I started looking at it, and I was like, oh, I do know what I'm doing. And so, not in a cocky way.
No, not at all.
I can see it now. I can see the places that you need to tweak it. And so I love being able to, critique something like for a contest or things like that, and give people some feedback and kind of help give them some direction, and trying to remember that it's hard to be a beginner. And it's hard to be an adult beginner, because we think we should have it all figured out.
We should have it figured out. That's really cool. That's really cool. And then just a couple other things. I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but you do CrossFit, which is pretty cool. It's like, wow.
We have an amazing CrossFit box here. We have, because I'm not skinny. I'm not kind of mega athlete by any means, but I love it. And it's the community of it.
Cool.
Our gym we have just the most amazing group of people. And I think that's part of what draws people to CrossFit is the community. And ours is just, we have so many families. Like, we'll have somebody who comes, and then the next thing you know, a few weeks later, their husband has joined, or their wife has joined, or their teenagers. I mean, this morning at the gym, there was a mom and her teenage son was there. They were working out together, and we have a lot of couples. Like, I go at 5:30 in the morning, and then my husband and I switch, and he goes at 6:30, and there's 4 or 5 couples that do that in the mornings. Yeah. And so it's just a great family friendly place, and I love it. And it's, I'm not great at it, but I absolutely love it. And I never thought I would throw barbells around. Like, I don't know about my husband. When he tried to talk me into it, I was like, honey, you know me. This is not a good fit. It's just, but it's like anything else. You learn, and good instruction, calm people who don't expect you to know everything off the bat, and it goes really well.
At 5:30 in the morning. I
have 3 children, and it's either 5:30 in the morning or it's just not going to happen.
It's not happening. Got it. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and my oldest has some disabilities, and she's actually right now headed to Myrtle Beach for the fall Special Olympics. And this morning it was also, I have to pack her suitcase and get her out the door. So it was a pretty hectic morning around here, but it's still good.
Oh, that's cool. And then celebrity crushes, because I saw that on your website too. You want to go see Lynn's website. It's very pretty, very well done, very nice, and just some cute ones.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's very, very nice, and some fun things. So Cary Grant is also one of my favorite actors ever. Yes, in fact, in my Revell series, Misty Willow, I've got Cary Grant references all throughout, at least the first, I think all 3 books, but especially the first one. You read about the different movies and stuff. So your favorite Cary Grant movie?
Oh, that's hard. Well, I am a huge romantic. So An Affair to Remember is
I love that
way up there on my list. Yeah. But then what was it? Was it Bringing Up Baby with the lion?
Yes. Yes. Oh. Is it a lion or? Yeah.
A lion or what is it?
I don't.
the cat,
The
whatever.
cat. Yes, the cat.
Is it Catherine? Is Catherine Hepburn?
Catherine Hepburn.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's so funny.
So I guess that's probably my two favorite, but I grew up, I remember when we got a VCR, like that was a big deal when we got a VCR, and you would rent the movies there was no Blockbuster. We had a Curtis Mathis. That's what, it was like you would go there and they sold TVs and they had a little video thing.
The rack, huh?
But we would get all these old movies, and I am a sucker for Cary Grant or like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. I can't dance at all, so I appreciate anyone who has grace. I'm like, oh. But yeah, I do love Cary Grant. I mean, just the man in a suit.
Yes.
And his whole bearing. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Me too. All right. Well, we are kind of getting along, and I'm sorry, but it's always I just love talking to authors, and we just have such a good time. One last question.
Okay.
You are all done with your novel. You put the end. What do you do to unwind?
Oh.
You say I've got 3 kids. I've got another novel to write.
There's not a lot of time. I do love to read, but sometimes reading is too close to the writing to truly be something that you can unwind.
Yeah, because you're editing as you're reading.
Yes, and it's hard to turn that off.
It is. Yeah,
so I do love to read, but I other than reading, I actually am currently addicted to the Great British Baking Show on Netflix.
Yeah.
I've heard people talking about it, and I'm like, oh, they're watching these British baking. I don't understand. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I love it. Absolutely, the whole thing, the accents, the food, the sponges, and the Genoese, and all these things. I just love it.
And they're so nice to each other.
They're so polite. Like there's it's like, we're so sorry to have to say goodbye. Oh, give us a hug. And I just love the civility of it. I love, so I am, I like to knit and crochet. I like to do stuff in the hand from that perspective. And then I am good for a good, I don't find it relaxing to watch things that are real tense or dark. Mm-hmm. I'm very much like, give me a rom-com, give me a baking show, something that is pleasant. And that's how I would probably say most of the time. Yeah.
Well, show us your books one more time, because we do want people to grab those.
Beneath the Surface is already out. You can grab it, and In Too Deep will be out by then.
Yeah.
And my website is just lynnhblackburn.com, and there's links to all of that good stuff.
And you have a newsletter.
Will be out next year.
Yeah. And then
yes.
I'm going to push this one too, because I really loved it.
Hidden Legacy is out, and I think you can still get paper copies of Hidden Legacy. Covert Justice.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it's not too long ago, just last year. Yeah. So hopefully by the time the fair's, you still will be able to.
I hope so. And Covert Justice, I don't know if you can get it. I've seen it used, but I haven't seen it in paper copy. But you can still get it on Kindle. And Covert Justice is, I think there's something special about your first published book.
Oh, absolutely.
Special.
So it's going to take some time here to. And there we go. If people, I don't know if anyone can. Oh, it went away.
You know what? Hold on.
You have one? Yeah, it's not going to.
So Covert
There we go. So read Covert Justice.
Hidden Legacy.
And Hidden Legacy. And Hidden Legacy was really, really, really good. And like I said, I've already started Covert Justice. I'm reading them backwards.
Well, it is tricky to write them. I try to write them so they can stand alone.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Where it's not too frustrating, but then you also want to have a little something for the readers who've already read it to kind of have that connection.
So
I never know if I've completely.
I thought you did well. I mean, I had the sense that there was probably a previous story.
Yes.
But it wasn't so much that I was like, oh man, I can't even read this one.
Can't even read. Yes.
So it was, you did a great job, and it really, again, just very action packed. And if the dive team books are the same, it's like I just know that it's going to be like, oh my gosh, once I open it, I would never be able to put it down. So
I hope so.
You. I mean, that's great. And I should mention too that Lynn is an award-winning, even just in her brief career already, she's already won awards, including the Carroll Award, which is a very coveted award. So
Yes.
congratulations on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Thank you
awesome.
so much. This is
Thank you
fun.
for having me. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Me
Thank you.
too. Thank you. And everybody, thank you for watching, and come back again for another episode of Novelists Unwind. Bye bye.